Hi, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. So, today we are going to be discussing another hot topic in the Black community. This time we are going to be discussing Black marriage. So, in my previous video, we talked about hood prom. And so, today we're going to be talking about another trending topic and has been trending a while in the Black community, and it is the idea of marriage. So, I decided to talk about this because I came across this uh, clip of a Black woman describing her experience as she interacts with women of other races and what they are being taught about marriage as compared to what's being, in this case, not taught in the Black community. So here's that video.
When I hang with Black women, when we say like I want a man to provide for me, I want to be a at home mom.
Yeah.
We are told like sack chaser, you supposed to work, you're strong. But when I sit with my white friends, their mothers was talking about marriage with them at like 17, 18, 19.
Okay.
They was like fresh out of college, like, where's your husband, Julie?
Yeah.
Like, you're not working. My Chinese friends, their parents, my Indian friends, their parents like.
Okay, so let's start off with some facts first. So we're going to start off with statistical data along racial lines about marriage, those who marry and those who don't marry. So I'm getting all this information from blackdemographics.com. So first we're going to talk about Black women. So this website says that 27% of Black women marry and then 49% never marry. Okay, so then they further break it down for Black men. The population of Black men who marry is 34%, and those who never marry is 51%. So you can see the never marry for Black women and for Black men are pretty much close. Now, if you break it down by race, this is the percentages of racial divide as far as marriage among Black, Hispanic, white, and Asian. So these are the percentages for those groups of people who marry. So for Black people, it's 31%, Hispanic is 43%, white is 53%, and Asian comes in at a whopping 59%. Now, for that same racial groups, these are the percentages of never marrying within that racial group. So for Black, it is 50%. For Hispanic is 43%. For white, it is 28%. And then for Asian, it is 31%. So big differences in marriage rates based on race. Now, of course, I'm going to give my 2 cents on this video, being a Black woman in the Black community. Now, in this video, the young Black woman is talking about what is being taught in different race groups about marriage and how her experience was that she was not being taught what the other races were being taught as far as mother teaching their young women about marriage. Okay, so my 2 cents, my experience. Now, I did go to college. So in my household, there was definitely an emphasis on going to school to get an education. So I did well in high school. I liked learning. So I knew after high school, I definitely was going to go to college. I was going to pursue some type of degree in math and science because that's what I was good at. And then I was going to get a good job, and then everything was going to be great. Now, I did have desires to be married. So in high school, I was like, oh, I'm going to go to college and then I'm going to get married and then I'm going to have kids. That's usually what most people are going to pursue in life is a family, and education is, especially, like I said, for me, I knew I wanted to pursue education. Now, I went to high school in the 90s and I also went to college in the 90s. So it's definitely a different experience now seeing Black marriages then than it is today. Now, when I was growing up, I saw Black marriage. A man and a woman married and they have kids. But I did notice the difference between black marriages at that time and then white marriages. Now, like I said, in the black household, you had the mom and the dad, and my experiences was that the black marriages I did know, neither parent had college education. They had high school, but they didn't have college. As opposed to the white marriages that I saw, usually the husband and the wife both had college. The other difference that I noticed between the black marriage and the white marriage is that in the black household, the woman worked outside of the home and then came home and took care of her family. Whereas with white married couples, if that couple had children, that woman stayed home. She did not work outside of the home. She worked in the home. She was a stay at home mom. Now, like I said in the beginning, education was definitely stressed in the household I grew up in, and I feel like in the black community overall, there was a strong emphasis on getting education. And of course, that makes sense because, prior to that, you had civil rights, and prior to that, you had slavery. So black people weren't always afforded an education or allowed to have an education. And I was always taught that if you get an education, your circumstances will be different than what you're seeing happen in the black community, which was basically like lower class, some poverty. So it was going to help your lot in life to go and get higher education. Now, in this video, the young lady is speaking on what was being taught to young girls in different classes or races of people as opposed to what she was being taught. Now, I can tell you from my own experience, when I went to college and I went to a predominantly white university, they had a handful of black people, that the white girls that I encountered in college, a lot of them were in school to get an education, but their main objective was to find a husband. Now, this was fascinating to me because not one time when I was pursuing the thought of going to college did any of the black women in my life say, hey, you also need to be concerned about trying to find a husband while you're out there. Not one time. It was stress, go get an education, go get an education. Now, like I said, I saw black marriage, but I never was sat down as a young black woman by an older black woman in my life and and talk to as far as, hey, are you thinking about marriage? Do you want to have kids? I believe it was just understood, oh, that's something that's just going to happen in life, but it was never a sit down and a talking to about who you should be pursuing, what kind of guy you should be pursuing, what do you want your life to look like, do you want to stay at home with your kids? There was never any of that conversation. And I guarantee you that my white counterparts at that time, growing up in the 90s and going to school in the 90s, I'm almost 100% sure that their mothers, these white mothers, these Asian mothers, I didn't really grow up around a lot of Hispanic people, but I did encounter a lot of white people and a lot of Asian people. This idea that the moms sat down and were teaching their young girls how to take care of themselves, what type of guy to pursue, especially if they were going to college. You want to marry the guys who are pursuing degrees that are going to be able to take care of families. So guys who are going to go into medicine or going into law, engineering. I'm 100% sure that this is what they were teaching their young girls, and probably the fathers were teaching their sons, you need to pursue this type of degree if you're looking to take care of a wife and she's going to stay home and raise your children. So I never experienced that in the Black community. But one of my beefs with the Black community is that there is very limited teaching. So one thing that I found growing up, especially as a teenager, and I was noticing because, I have that type of personality where I sit back and I watch how people interact and what's being taught and what's not being taught. And one thing that I noticed that while, these white girls that I was growing up around and the moms were taking them shopping every week and, they were very adamant about teaching the young girls, to put on their face in the morning and to make sure their hair looks nice and, to dress nicely. Not to say that that was not being taught in the Black community, but I think there was an issue in the Black community, especially with older Black women. They had this attitude of if a young lady was trying to look nice, keep herself presentable, wear cute little outfits. I mean, nothing extreme. It's just, taking care of her hair and trying to put makeup on, teaching herself how to put makeup on, and, that it was perceived as being fast. And it was always, oh, you need to be in your books. And I'm like, to me, that was wild, even as a teenager, because you're calling somebody fast and all they're trying to do is just keep themselves presentable or being cute. That's hardwired in girls, is to look pretty. I know some people are going to disagree on that, but I don't. Little girls like to look cute and they want to know, what do they look like? Do I look pretty? So that is hardwired into us to want to be cute and to like girly things. Now, of course, there's always exceptions. I was an exception. I wasn't girly, but I did care about what I looked like. But I feel like in the Black community, instead of the Black women actually teaching young girls this is okay, teaching the young girls it's okay, once you get into your later teens, like 15 and 16, to be attracted to teenage boys, that's normal. But they made it seem like, oh, you were being fast, or if even the idea that, oh, you're being fast and you're trying to attract older men. There's no amount of a teenage girl taking care of herself, grooming herself properly, that makes her fast, that a old man should be attracted to her. Something's wrong with that old man, not with that young girl. So, like I said, I just saw that difference in the white community where the women were teaching the young girls, this is how you carry yourself. They would show them, you see the life that we're living. If you want to live this type of life, this is the type of person you should be pursuing. So, and it's not, I never do these videos to come down on Black people. But I do think that there's conversations that we should be having. You need to treat your children like they are people and that you can have a conversation with them. Never once did anybody have a conversation with me about marriage and the importance of it. And look, I went to a Christian university. So, of course, the worldview that was taught was a biblical worldview. And I understood that marriage was something that you pursue, and it was the context in which you had children. But it was never taught in the house, in my household. Why is it important? How you should pick a person? And that even the idea in this video where the young woman is saying that in these other races, they pursue marriage early. Like, to be married at 22 is not a big deal for them. But I'm more than certain that if at 18 I had decided, hey, I want to get married right now, would they have stopped me? I don't think so. But would they have discouraged it? Yes. Whereas in these other races, they're like, oh, you always can get education. but like the primary goal is to be married and have children. Now that was then in the 90s. Today is a whole nother story, because now you have this whole um, genre of podcasts where you have white women and other races of women besides black saying, oh, you need to go in your 20s and live this wild lifestyle and do all this stuff, get all that stuff out of your system, and then settle down and then get married and have children. And we're not even talking about the differences in teaching about having children outside of wedlock. That's a whole nother teaching. Like, the school that I went to was a predominantly white institute, and it was also Christian. And I distinctly remember a young lady getting pregnant. Everybody knew she was pregnant. This is a white girl, and her parents and the guy's parents made these two kids marry. And they probably were in their 19, 20, maybe 20 was the oldest. So there's definitely a difference also, especially back then in the 90s, where I saw whenever white kids, quote unquote, got into trouble, they were immediately made to marry. Whereas when I saw out of wedlock uh, issues going on in the black community, there was never any talk about pushing the kids to get married. And of course, there's arguments for if that's a good idea, or if there's not a good idea. But I just want to talk about marriage in the black community, and of course, plenty of people have ideas of what's keeping black uh, people from marrying. You can talk about incarceration of black men. Um, you can talk about the welfare system trying to push out black men from the home. So, but I just thought it was interesting that this young lady was talking about the idea of marriage being taught in the black community. She saw her younger uh, or her counterparts being married at an early age and desiring to be home with their kids and being taught they should be home with their kids. And when she decides to want that same thing, or another black woman decides, hey, I just want to be married and have kids, and my husband needs to go out and work, and I stay home with my kids, that somehow we're supposed to be doing something different, that we have to be strong. And so we got to hold down a family and hold down a job. And the other women in other races, that they feel no obligation to do that. Now, that's not to say that some of those women don't choose to pursue careers and a family, but it seems disproportionate, or it seems like it is a big deal when a black woman decides to say, hey, I want to live a life where I want to be married, I want to have children, I want to stay home with my children. Um, but it seems like we're being taught something different, and other races of women get to live this different life when we're all trying to pursue the same thing. If it's marriage and having kids, why shouldn't we all be afforded the same opportunity to pursue that same lifestyle? That makes sense. But that's my 2 cents. Um, like I said, I did want that as a high schooler. You have these dreams, and oh, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to get married, I'm going to have kids. Now, I can tell you, it never crossed my mind that I was supposed to stay home and just raise my kids, because that's not what I saw. I assumed I would get married, have kids, and then I would work outside the home and then come home and take care of a family. So let me know what you think about this topic in the black community. I do feel the number one thing that is lacking in the black community is teaching. It's teaching our children. And that involves sitting down and talking with them, asking them their hopes and dreams, and helping them to plan it out. Like, how are you going to do that? If you want this type of life, how are you going to do that? What steps would you take to get to that lifestyle? So that's what I just feel like is lacking in the black community overall, is just teaching. So if you are a Black family, I would encourage you to sit down with your kids and have conversations with them and to teach them, because sometimes we're trying to pursue goals and we really don't know the steps to get to that. Now, I can tell you as an older Black woman, um, that I actually fall in the statistic of never being married, that 49% of Black women who have never been married and probably will not marry. It's like I said, I am older. Once you get older, sometimes you're set in your ways, but um, but that's a topic for another day. So let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.